Let's just get it out there. People are afraid of speaking in public. Why do we feel nervous about presentations? Turns out it's completely physiological. The body is afraid with us. We are afraid of making a fool out of ourselves. And so the body, in fear, like any other fear, the brain tells it, I'm afraid, the body starts pumping adrenaline. Things happen to the body. Sweating, mouth going dry, losing train of thought. We are afraid. It's just like someone stalking you with a knife. Fear causes the body to react that way. How do we calm that fear? For most of us, it goes down pretty quickly once we start presenting. But we want to calm that before we start presenting. How do we do that? Some people recommend drugs like alcohol that will calm the fear. They make us more relaxed. I don't recommend that. We want some nervousness. Some adrenaline is good. It makes us have energy. The adrenaline is good. We don't want to get rid of all of it. The most important thing we can do when trying to relax, because we don't want to be too relaxed, our audience will get bored. They want to know we're excited about the subject. But the most important thing is to know. You have to know a lot to be able to give a good presentation. First, you have to know your audience. Most of us think of presentations in terms of what we want to say. When I try to prepare a presentation, I often think about, what do I want to tell my audience? But that's not right. We should really think about what our audience wants to know from us. We need to know what they want. What is their interest? We should think about why they're at the talk in the first place. Why are they there in the audience? So imagine you've been asked to come speak on thermodynamics. Even though you spent a lot of time researching this one piece of machinery, if it's not about thermodynamics, what they asked you to come talk about, then you shouldn't present on it. Remember this rule: always give the people what they want. So if you want to be a good presenter, present on what your audience wants to know, not on what you want to talk about. Now sometimes the audience doesn't know that they want to know something because it's original research. They've never heard of it. What they want may be what's good for them. It may be what they need, even though they may not know it. So you should think about, how will the audience use the new knowledge you're about to give them? If they can find it useful, if they can take it back to their labs and use the information you just gave them, then that is what they want. That's why they're there. Everyone in the audience wants something useful from you. The second thing you need to know about your audience is what is their knowledge level before coming to your presentation. So we have to know what our audience already knows. Sometimes we are talking to what I call a multiple audience. So we're giving a presentation and there may be marketing people in there, copywriters, engineers, management who are not engineers. For those presentations, what we try to do is speak to the person with the lowest technical knowledge and bring them up to speed quickly so that they're with everyone else. So if there's a term that an engineer may know, but they're only a quarter of the audience, we should explain that term so that the rest of the audience can get it if they don't already know it. Some general science we can assume everyone knows, usually. For more specialized technical stuff, we should always try to bring up the person with the least knowledge in that field. It's not that they're the stupidest, it's they may not be familiar with that field. For instance, imagine giving a presentation at an IEEE conference on antennas and propagation. The people who are at that conference are going to have a lot of knowledge in that field already. Now imagine giving that same presentation at a general engineering conference. They may have electrical engineers, maybe mechanical engineers, civil engineers, industrial engineers, aerospace engineers. They may not have that specialized knowledge. So are they stupid? No. It's a different conference with a different audience. So we try to bring everyone up to the same speed. Explain the specific technical information that the audience may not know. It's very important to think about what your audience already knows. So the first thing you need to know is your audience. The second thing you need to know is your material. I remember when I was going up to give my dissertation defense, I was really nervous. I was trying to prepare for it, and I was speaking to my advisor, and she told me, "Chad, you're going to do fine." And I said, "Well, I hope so, but I'm still nervous about it." And she said, "No, you're going to do fine. I wouldn't let you do it if I knew you weren't ready." Now, at first I thought she was just being nice. I thought she was just trying to calm my fears. But I've thought about that statement a lot. It's come to mean a few things. First of all, her statement made me realize I was prepared. I had done the work. I had done everything I needed to be able to explain this argument. I had spent years working on it. I was the expert. I knew more about this topic than anyone else in the room. This was not a test or something. I was prepared. It was an opportunity, not a test. It was an opportunity for me to explain what I had done to people who weren't as familiar with it. I cared deeply about my subject. I wanted to get it out there to my audience. The second thing her statement about not letting me present if I wasn't ready told me was that the audience was there because they wanted to learn from me. If I was the expert, I was the person who knew more about this topic, then everyone was sitting in that room because I was the expert. They wanted me to teach them. They wanted me to talk about this subject, what I had done. And that's a comforting thought. It's true of all presentations. If a person is asked to give a presentation on a subject, it's because they are the expert. They are the ones who have done the research. They are the ones who know the material better than anyone. So everyone in the room wants to learn from them. Now, sometimes things are not so easy. I remember the first academic conference I ever presented at. I was a graduate student, and I thought it was going to be a small conference on travel writing. And I went. Turns out it was the biggest national conference on travel writing, which still I didn't think was a big field. Turns out it was. In my presentation, I gave my paper, and afterwards I realized that two of my primary sources were sitting in the audience. They were there. Two of the people that I kept quoting from were sitting in my audience. And those two people asked me questions. One of them asked me if I had bothered to check this person's letters in the London library. And I said, no. The other person asked me why I had not considered this one obscure theory to explain why the author had acted this way. I said, those are really interesting points. I'm going to have to look into that. That sounds like that could really be something interesting to add to this research. What I wanted to say was, hey, I'm just a graduate student, a first-year master's student. I'm glad I didn't say that. And I knew if they had been prepared to give the talk I gave, then they would have done it. Why weren't they presenting? Why weren't they the ones talking on that subject? It's because I was the one who did the research. The conference organizers read my paper and said, this is good. We want this person to present. Not those people in the audience. I was the expert. So, once you know your audience and you know your material, the third thing you have to know is your presentation. Never go into a presentation without having practiced. I saw one presenter give a presentation where he did not know what was coming next on his slides. He did not know what was going to be on the slide. He had to read it. It was a terrible presentation, one of the worst I've seen. And I thought very low about that person. In fact, I wanted him killed, but because he had wasted so much of my time. But never mind. We have no tolerance for people who do not practice their presentations. So when I say practice your presentations, I mean actually practice them. Stand up and talk. You can talk in front of a mirror, you can talk in front of your computer, but actually speak it. Nothing will help you work out problems like timing or other glitches with your slides like actually giving the entire presentation. Actually practicing your presentation helps you overcome nervousness too, because you know what's coming. You know the presentation. That gives you comfort. You also know what you're going to say, so that your mouth remembers. There is something about memory, muscle memory. You know what you're going to say because you've already said it. I'm not saying memorize your presentations. Nothing is worse than memorizing presentations. Well, okay, I guess some things are worse, but memorizing a presentation leads to a bland, emotionless presentation. What happens is you are so worried about remembering what you're trying to say that you forget about what you're actually saying. And so you don't end up putting the right emphasis on the right syllables because you're just trying to get the words out. And so your audience isn't getting the full meaning because of the inflection problem. And we've talked about that before. It also just makes it boring. We've talked about how boring and communication work together. And if you do try to memorize what you say and you have trouble at one point, it takes you a lot longer to recover. Your mind has temporarily gone blank and it's trying to remember what it was supposed to say, so it can't move on to the next point. It can't just go because it's stuck. It's hitting that skipping point and it's trying to remember. And so when you mess up, and people inevitably do when they try to memorize presentations, they have a lot harder time recovering. So it's much better just to practice a few times and then let it come naturally, like you did in practice.